imagine a revered spiritual master, right? And he's using this highly inappropriate, just shockingly scandalous parable involving a woman and a donkey.
Yeah, it's definitely not what you'd expect.
No, not at all. But he's using it to teach you, like, the absolute most critical lesson about your own ego.
Right.
Because today we are just completely shattering that sanitized, ethereal image of ancient spiritual poetry. You know the one. You usually picture some solitary monk sitting on a mountaintop
Oh,
somewhere.
totally. Completely detached from the messy realities of human life,
Hmm.
just floating on a cloud.
Exactly. But then you open up this multi-volume commentary on Jalaluddin Rumi's Mesnevi, and suddenly you're looking at a spiritual landscape that is just incredibly raw and hilarious, and honestly sometimes fatal.
Yeah, the material we are diving into today is it's the absolute definition of a spiritual reality check.
Right.
We are looking specifically at volume 15 of this monumental commentary on the Masnavi, where a devoted student actually takes up the pen after his master's death to finish interpreting these thousands of lines of deeply grounded poetry.
Wow.
And what emerges from these interpretations is this brilliant, just unforgiving roadmap of human psychology.
And that roadmap is our mission for this deep dive. We are going to navigate through real-life historical clapbacks, some truly mind-blowing biological facts about bees.
The bee stuff is amazing.
It's so good. And of course, that scandalous parable I mentioned earlier, because the ultimate goal here is to understand how our egos, our lusts, and our habit of blindly imitating others actively prevent us from reaching our true human potential.
Yeah.
So whether you're a poetry aficionado or just, insanely curious about human behavior, stick with us. This exploration is going to completely shift how you view the knowledge you consume and the people you imitate.
Absolutely. Because to truly grasp Rumi's heavy metaphors, we have to start with the two very real, very modern men interpreting them.
Right. Grounds it in reality.
Exactly. Yeah. Grounding this ancient poetry in their lived relationship reveals why the text hits so hard. Because the scale of the original work is staggering. I mean, the Mesnevi contains 25,669 couplets.
Which is just a massive undertaking.
That's huge. And the original master, Tahir-ul-Mevlevi, who was also known as Tahir-Olgun, he translated and interpreted 17,309 of them before he passed away.
Leaving his student, right. A retired military officer named Shifik Khan to just humbly, and I think very reluctantly, take on the remaining 8,020 couplets.
Yeah, reluctant is the perfect word.
Because Shifik actually described the feeling of taking over this work as moving from a, quote, wide asphalt road onto a rough dirt path. Like he was a military man stepping into the shoes of a literal literary giant.
Right.
He felt entirely unworthy of the task.
And his hesitation there, it really speaks volumes about his character. He didn't view his predecessor's death as some, sudden career opportunity to boost his own ego.
Right, like a promotion.
Exactly. He viewed it as a terrifying responsibility. And their relationship over the decades leading up to that moment was forged through a very specific kind of friction.
Okay, let's unpack this friction, because their dynamic reminds me of, well, it's like a classic Jedi Master testing a young Padawan.
Oh, that's a great analogy. Yeah.
Because back in 1929, Shifik is just this young military student, and he tracks down this famous master, Tahir, and asks to borrow a rare book about a historical figure.
Just casually asked to borrow it.
Right. And Tahir point blank refuses to let the book leave his house. He tells the young man he can't, come in and read it there, but he absolutely will not loan it out.
Yeah, and put yourself in the young student's shoes for a second. Shifik was in his official military uniform. He really felt that his status alone should have commanded trust and respect.
Of course.
So feeling slighted by the refusal, he just walks away. And in a modern context where we expect immediate access to all information at the push of a button.
Just Google it.
Yeah, Tahir's refusal might seem arrogant or just unnecessarily difficult.
But then years later, fate throws them back together. Shefik is assigned to do his teacher training under none other than Tahir.
Talk about awkward.
Seriously. And eventually, Tahir explains his initial refusal by pointing to a quote hanging on his wall. And it says, "My lover is my book. Would you give your lover to someone else, even for a moment?"
It's such a great line, because the master was refusing to hand over the knowledge cheaply. By denying the instant gratification of borrowing the book, Tahir was forcing the student to confront his own entitlement. It was a test of reverence, basically.
You have to earn it.
Exactly. In order to truly absorb the profound spiritual truths Tahir had to offer, Shefik had to learn to respect the weight of the material. He had to earn it through patience, rather than just demanding it because he wore a fancy uniform.
And that patience definitely paid off, because Tahir wasn't just a strict guardian of books. He was incredibly resilient and armed with this razor-sharp wit.
Oh, incredibly witty.
Like, even after undergoing a highly invasive, very serious prostate surgery, he maintained his humor. He joked that with all the medical tubes attached to him in the hospital bed, fate had turned him into a hookah.
Which is just, I mean, finding humor in intense physical suffering like that illustrates a profound detachment from the ego.
Yeah.
Tahir didn't view his physical degradation as an insult to his identity, and that exact same detachment is what allowed him to navigate social attacks with such brilliance.
Which brings us to the famous dog clapback. I love this story.
Is legendary.
So there was this doctor, Dr. Sadiq, who tried to publicly humiliate Tahir in front of a whole group of teachers. He brought up an old, somewhat obscure poem about a guy named Tahir, a name which literally translates to clean in Arabic.
Right. Tahir means clean.
And the poem essentially used wordplay to call the man named Tahir a dog. So Dr. Sadiq was trying to corner the master using his own weapon, using poetry.
Yeah, the doctor was weaponizing Tahir's own field of expertise against him. He fully expected Tahir to react with outrage, to, defend his honor, or to attack the doctor back in anger.
Yay.
Because that would be the standard ego-driven response.
Instead, Tahir expertly flips the trap. He uses religious legal loopholes, pointing out that in the Maliki sect of Islam, dogs are actually considered physically clean.
So smooth.
Right. He calmly breaks down the poetry, completely disarming the insult on a technical level. But then he delivers the final crushing blow. He looks at the doctor and says, "People might debate if a dog is Tahir, meaning clean, but nobody doubts a dog is Sadiq, meaning loyal."
It's just devastating. He took the doctor's own name, Sadiq, and trapped him in his own linguistic game.
So good.
But the deeper psychological mechanism at play here is why Tahir could do that so calmly. He didn't feel the sting of the insult because his ego wasn't tied to the doctor's opinion of it.
Yeah, and that interaction perfectly sets up the first major lesson they pull from Rumi's poetry: why people stubbornly resist wisdom and hold on to their worldly obsessions.
Yeah. Rumi uses the unforgettable metaphor of a donkey's sore. If you wrap a cloth around a donkey's bleeding sore, and that cloth dries and fuses to the wound, trying to rip it off is going to make the donkey violently kick you in pain.
Because it's literally fused to them. And the dried cloth represents our worldly wealth, our status, our manufactured identities.
Right.
Over time, those external things become fused to our internal sense of self. So when spiritual guides, or even just honest friends, try to detach us from those material obsessions, we react with the exact same violent anger as the donkey.
Because it hurts.
Yeah, the intervention feels like a physical assault because our ego is literally being ripped away.
And the sources actually compare these defensive, angry people to owls living in a ruined, crumbling house.
I love this imagery.
They're completely uninterested in hearing about beautiful, thriving cities like Baghdad or Tabas. They're so attached to their comfortable ruins that the mere suggestion of a better, more enlightened place sounds like a personal threat. Well, the psychological comfort of the ruin is powerful, right? It is familiar. To leave the ruin requires admitting that you have been living in the dark.
Right.
And Rumi pushes this concept further by exploring the relationship between outward knowledge and internal character through the metaphor of a nut, like a walnut or an almond.
Okay.
The outward display of knowledge, the facts and figures you memorize, is merely the hard outer shell. The inner meat, the actual character or spiritual vow of the person, is the nut itself.
Okay, wait. I have to challenge this premise entirely.
Go for it.
Because we are literally doing a deep dive right now to learn things. As learners, you and I and the listener, we spend our whole lives educating ourselves, reading books, and gathering facts. We are intentionally building up that shell.
Right.
So if knowledge is the shell, isn't the shell absolutely necessary to protect the nut? Like, is Rumi really suggesting that our pursuit of learning is just superficial posturing?
No, the shell is in the beginning, absolutely. The danger arises when the shell becomes the entire goal.
Ah, I see.
The text argues that as the inner meat, your actual internalized wisdom and spiritual depth grows richer and more perfect, the outer shell naturally becomes thinner.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The pushback you're feeling right now is exactly what Rumi is diagnosing. We often confuse performative knowledge with internal growth.
Wow.
People who display thick, impenetrable shells of loud, showy knowledge often have a tiny, shriveled nut inside. When your inner substance truly develops, your desperate need to outwardly display your shell of intelligence diminishes. You don't need to prove you are smart if you are actually wise.
That is the louder the bragging, the smaller the nut inside.
Exactly.
That completely changes how I look at intellectual debates, because if humans are so hindered by our massive egos and the thick shells of our superficial knowledge, what does true ego-less purpose actually look like in practice?
Right. What's the alternative?
Yeah, and the commentary provides this stunning data-heavy comparison using the natural world, focusing on the divine inspiration of the bee.
Yet the biological realities of the bee are used to illustrate what happens when a living creature operates purely on divine instruction, possessing what the text calls the hive's soul.
The hive soul.
Right. The efficiency is staggering because there is zero friction caused by individual ego.
The stats they pull in to prove this are just mind-boggling. I mean, they note that it takes 750,000 bees to equal the weight of a single 75-kilogram human man.
Tiny.
But these tiny, practically weightless creatures flap their wings 11,400 times a minute.
It's hard to even fathom that kind of energy.
And they will fly a collective 300,000 miles just to produce half a kilo of honey.
And beyond the physical labor, consider the societal structure. You have nursemaids, you have architects, and guards operating in perfect harmony.
Right.
You have a queen who does not act like a human dictator hoarding resources. She is described as a humble mother, laying up to 1 million eggs in her lifetime, entirely devoted to the survival of the collective. She doesn't need a thick shell. Her entire existence is the inner substance.
So it sounds like bees are executing a flawless, divinely coded algorithm with absolutely zero glitches.
Yeah.
Whereas humans are walking around with the ultimate supercomputer brain, but we keep intentionally downloading malware. Like, we have the capacity for incredible creation, but our ego keeps crashing the system.
That's a great way to put it, because the malware of the ego is a byproduct of human free will. We have the choice to focus entirely on our own desires.
Right?
So Rumi asks a devastating question. If a tiny insect can create such literal miracles of engineering and sustenance through this divine inspiration, why do humans, who are considered the highest of all creations, fail so miserably?
Because we have access to what the text calls the Kebsar, and it describes Kebsar as this heavenly river of absolute abundance and infinite spiritual knowledge. We have VIP access to this river, but the text says we remain dry and thirsty.
Think about the mechanics of standing next to a river but dying of thirst.
It makes no sense.
Exactly. You're kneeling at the bank, but instead of cupping your hands to drink the water, you are paralyzed by looking at your own reflection on the surface.
Oh, wow.
Our worldly desires, our obsession with how we appear to others, keep us staring at the reflection. We are parched next to the river of abundance because the malware of our ego prevents us from simply drinking.
Which brings us to the darkest, most cautionary part of the commentary.
Yeah, brace yourselves.
Because if the bee shows us what perfect purpose looks like, the sources also show us the exact mechanics of human failure. And they do it using a parable that is wildly scandalous and undeniably graphic.
The story of the woman and the donkey. It is intentionally shocking. Rumi used this extreme narrative to basically snap his audience awake and force them to confront the fatal dangers of blind lust and faking spiritual depth.
Okay, let me set the scene for this parable carefully.
Please do.
So, a maid trains a donkey for physical pleasure. But understanding the sheer physical power of the animal, she knows she could be fatally injured. So, to protect herself, she uses a hollowed-out gourd as a stopping mechanism. It's a tool of physical limitation.
Yeah, it acts as a necessary barrier.
Yeah.
She engages with her desire, but she employs a mechanical safeguard to prevent that desire from destroying her.
Well, her mistress catches her in the act, and the mistress is instantly blinded by a cocktail of envy and overwhelming lust. The text provides this brilliant line here, noting that lust makes dung look like honey.
Such a powerful phrase.
Right. So the mistress sends the maid away on a fake errand so she can take her place and try it herself. But crucially, the mistress only saw the outward action. She completely missed the secret of the gourd.
She missed the safeguard.
She attempts the act without the protective barrier, and she dies horribly.
It is a brutal end, yes. But we need to look past the shock value to the actual mechanics of the metaphor. The story is a profound warning about the dangers of imitation.
Right.
The mistress copied the outward behavior of someone else without understanding the hidden protective mechanisms that made that behavior survivable in the first place.
So if we pull this out of the scandalous context and apply it to our own lives, What does the gourd actually represent?
Okay, so the gourd represents riyazat, which translates to ascetic discipline.
Ascetic discipline.
Right. It is the internal training, the psychological framework, and the deep spiritual fortitude that a master develops over decades of unseen struggle.
Okay.
It is the ability to feel an intense urge, whether it be lust, anger, or greed, and logically limit your reaction to it. That internal stop mechanism is the gourd.
So when a novice looks at a spiritual master, or even just a highly successful person in today's world, they only see the outward behavior. They see the freedom, the eccentricity, or the apparent ease, and they try to copy it.
Exactly.
I see this constantly with modern hustle culture. You have people blindly mimicking the outward routines of billionaires, waking up at 4 a.m., taking ice baths, posting the exact same motivational quotes.
Oh, yes.
They are copying the reflection. But they haven't done the grueling, unglamorous, silent work of actually building the business acumen or the mental resilience. They are attempting the act without the gourd.
That is a brilliant modern application. If you try to mimic the freedom of a master without having built the internal discipline to protect your own psyche, you will be destroyed by your own unchecked ego.
Yeah.
Because the discipline isn't there to hold you back. It's there to keep you alive when you encounter immense power or profound spiritual truths.
You can't just copy the result. You have to do the work. And the text reinforces this danger of hollow imitation with another unforgettable metaphor: the parrot and the mirror.
Yeah, this one is much less graphic but equally profound. To teach a parrot to speak, a trainer will hide behind a mirror and talk.
Okay.
The parrot looks into the mirror, sees its own reflection, and thinks another bird is speaking to it. So the parrot naturally mimics the sounds, totally unaware of the true human master hiding behind the glass.
So the parrot is just making noises. It has absolutely no comprehension of the language it is speaking.
Precisely. And the commentary directly compares this to a fake disciple. It illustrates this with the example of a deaf man in a crowded room.
Oh, I read this.
Yeah, so someone tells a profound or hilarious story, the room erupts in laughter, and the deaf man laughs along with them. He sees the outward reaction, he mimics the posture of joy, but he entirely missed the punchline.
He has the thick outward shell of participation, but no inner nut of comprehension.
We see this everywhere. People often imitate the tears, the sighs, or the heavy, profound vocabulary of a wise person. They adopt the aesthetic of death.
Like aesthetic, right.
But they haven't endured the 30 years of internal struggle required to actually understand the meaning behind those tears.
They are just a parrot talking to a mirror. And that kind of imitation is dangerous because it breeds a false sense of security. You trick yourself into thinking you have arrived at the destination just because you are wearing the uniform of a traveler.
Well said.
But without the inner work, without the discipline of the gourd, you are incredibly vulnerable to the first real storm that hits your life.
And this brings us all the way back to Tahir and his student, Shefik Khan. Shefik didn't just mimic Tahir's translations. He spent decades absorbing the master's discipline, enduring the refusals, and doing the grueling work of traveling from the asphalt road onto the dirt path.
Right.
He built his own gourd before he ever picked up the pen to finish the Mesnevi.
It is an incredible journey we've taken through these pages today. We started with the beautiful lived devotion between a witty master and his humble student. We confronted the painful reality of having our egos ripped away like dried cloth off a donkey's sore. We contrasted our own flawed, malware-infected human operating system with the flawless, egoless purpose of the bee.
A hive soul.
Yes, exactly. And finally, we face the fatal consequences of lust and blind imitation through the unforgettable stories of the hidden gourd and the parrot in the mirror.
The through line connecting all of these sources is the necessity of authentic, deep inner work over superficial outward display.
So as you go about your week, think about the areas in your life where you are trying to replicate someone else's success, their wisdom, or their lifestyle. Are you actually seeing the whole picture, or are you just a parrot mimicking a reflection, completely missing the hidden gourds of discipline that keep those people safe? Next time you find yourself desperately trying to copy a master, ask yourself, am I just staring at my own reflection in the mirror, or am I willing to do the hard work to find the teacher hiding behind it?